couple of weeks ago, Sarah and I went down to the Grampians. The Grampians is this national park. It's a heap of sandstone, rock mountains and stuff. Compared to where we are here, where we are, it's flat as a pancake. I've explained that before in other videos, but down there, it's a nice mountainous area. And we did a lot of bushwalking and stuff like that. From where we are, it's about 3.5, 4 hours, I think it took us to get down there. We stopped and had lunch and that sort of thing, and coffee. Love the coffee. And down there, it's the first time that I've approached the Grampians from a photography point of view, and as I was walking into the mountains, I was thinking, what sort of video could I do for you guys that's going to show you something about the Grampians and also teach you something about photography? And after about the first hour that we were in the bush, it was obvious what we were doing. It was composition rules, because down there, everywhere you looked, there's a different composition of something that you can take a photo of, whereas here, you've got to look pretty hard for it. So one of these things that comes up with photography is that if you're a little bit stuck and you're not sure what to shoot, leave town, go somewhere else and photograph something else. And it was very obvious that was the case when we went to the Grampians. Everywhere I looked, something different to shoot. So in this video, what we're doing is 3 different rules of composition. They're pretty cool rules. And at the end of the video, we'll stick around. I'll show you a couple of other sort of photography techniques that we can use to help tell the story and get a little bit of art and keep your eye focused on the different sort of thing to shoot every time you go away. All right, let's get into it. G'day guys, Shane Mostyn here. Every week I put out 2 videos, all about mobile photography. Usually about astrophotography with your mobile phone, as in photographing the stars. Hit the like button, leave me a comment down the bottom. Quite often the comments lead to more videos. So if there's something that you want to know how to do, leave a comment down the bottom, and chances are I'm probably going to make a video of it in the future. All right guys, let's get into this. So when we got to Halls Gap, and Halls Gap is one of the towns at the base of the Grampians there, that's where we stay. We stay in this place called Dulce. It's a bunch of cabins, and they're quite secluded. We're pretty private people, and we like to be away from the crowds and stuff. So when we go away, we like to be as secluded as we can. So we've stayed at Dulce before. They're little cabins in the middle of the bush. There's only 5 cabins there, or 4 cabins there. And when you're there, you actually can't see the other cabins, like they're through the bush. When we first got there, I walked out the back, and right at the back door, there's a little wallaby or kangaroo sitting there, and I took some little video of him there, and off he went, and off into the bush. But first day we went and had a look at the town. There's more kangaroos in town. So even though you might see on Facebook and different social medias that you might expect to come to Australia and see kangaroos hopping down the town, but it just doesn't happen. But in Halls Gap, it kind of does. So there's kangaroos around, emus and that sort of thing. So anyway, second day we went to the waterfall. Third day we went to the pinnacle. Now the pinnacle is kind of like this. If you go to Halls Gap, if you go to the Grampians, people say, did you climb the pinnacle? Because it's one of these things that when you go there, you just kind of got to do it. If you go to Spain, they might say, did you run with the bulls? If you go to New Zealand, they might say, did you bungee jump off a bridge? Did you do the jet boats through the rapids? That sort of stuff. So when you go to the Grampians, people say, did you climb the pinnacle? And the pinnacle is this long bush walk up the mountain, and right at the top, there's this little walkway that takes you up above this rock, and you can see it's a long way down. It's pretty full on. So we went up there the first day. We got some cool little video, but on the way there, Sarah was having a break because I was too busy filming stuff, and she was walking ahead, and she sat down on this little rocky outcrop there, and I thought, what an awesome photo. So I quickly snapped the photo, and what was good about that photo is the composition of that photo. Let's have a look at that one. So Sarah's just sitting there on the rocks looking out at the dam out the back there. She's the obvious subject in the photo. But you look at all these lines in the rocks, and these lines, they're not obvious when you first look at it, but if you look at it from a photography point of view, these are all leading lines. And this is an absolute leading line composition photo. So do we have other leading lines? Well, all the way up through the Grampians, because they've got these the outcrops, the sandstone rocky outcrops everywhere. They're all over the Grampians. There are leading line photos pretty much everywhere you bloody well turn. Like, have a look at this one here as we're walking through this little canyon here. She's the obvious subject in the photo, but all those lines down that canyon, well, it's a leading line photo, and it's a great photo. What else we got? We got any more? Yeah, there's another one right there. We walked past and had a look at this reflection shot. Nice little bit of a split in the rock with some weeds, some water. Let's try a bit of a reflection sort of a shot. Hop down on that rock.
Yeah.
And you can see in this reflection shot all these leading lines, and this was just a puddle, but how effective is that photo? The clouds are in the reflection. It's a great photo. So leading lines as a composition rule are just the duck's nuts. They're fantastic. So we were walking up to the pinnacle, and as we're getting higher and higher, there's no one around. Like, there's literally no one around. We're the only ones there. We're kind of early morning people, so we were there at, I don't know, probably 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're already halfway up the mountain, and we just didn't see another soul. And as we're getting higher and higher and higher, we're getting into the cloud, and by the time we got to the pinnacle, you couldn't see a bloody thing. The cloud had all closed in. It was like skiing in Japan with a whiteout. You couldn't see, that far in front of you. Here we could see maybe 100 metres in front of us, but we got to the pinnacle, looked over the edge, you couldn't see anything. And I said to Sarah, look, we even took a selfie up here, and I said to her, we could have just taken that at home in front of a white wall. We didn't need to go anywhere. The photo's the same. So anyway, we came back down the mountain. Sarah got a little bit of vertigo looking over the edge there because she couldn't see anything. And we got here this morning just after breakfast, so I'd say we got here, so it's a Sunday, so it's weekend, and we got here roughly about 8:30, I'd say. There was one car in the car park. We saw one little couple of people down there. Got up to the top of the pinnacle there. We hadn't seen a soul all morning besides those two people. On the way back down, there's bloody people everywhere. And we were coming back down the mountain at probably 11:30 or so. In the car park, when we first got there, we were the only one in the car park. Actually, no, that's not true. There was 2 cars in the car park, ours and one other. When we got there, it was packed, absolutely packed. And then the bloody rain came. Before we went to the weekend, the forecast didn't look good. We said it was going to rain every day, and we were like, we'll sod it. We're just going to stay inside all day, and I'll go get wet if I need to. But the rain was really quite good to us the whole weekend. It didn't rain besides this one morning as we're coming back down the mountain. So the next day we went to the pinnacle again. We went at it from a different route this time. The first time we went through the Sundial car park, I think it was called. The next day we went to, I think it was Wonderland car park. So the first day the walk was kind of undulating. The second day, not the case at all. We wanted to see the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon was closed, so I took some drone footage of it. And it's a bit of a shame that we didn't get to see that because it looks pretty bloody good. So as we continue up to the pinnacle, we went through this place called the Silent Street, I think it was called, and it's a really narrow sort of a gorge, I guess is the right word, and it went for a few hundred metres, and the echoing in there was just sensational. It was nice and cool down inside there, and if you're kind of a chunky sort of person, don't bother doing it, because at the other end it's only about this wide. The stairs that lead out of it, they're not really wide. You know, when you go to theme parks and you say you need to be this high to ride this ride, well, they should have a sign at the beginning of that Silent Street there saying if you're wider than this, don't go on this ride. So anyway, we got through that, and the view from up there, which is bloody ridiculous. So as you're looking out there, you see Sarah through the middle there, and you see all these rocks around the outside, and these rocks that are around there, they make a frame. And how good are these? Let's talk about framing. That's the second rule of composition, is framing. Now this photo here, this is actually a panorama photo with the iPhone, and you can see there the big gap through the middle of that valley. It makes a perfect frame. If you have a look at, let's look at this one here. This is on the way back down the mountain, and you can see that the dam there is the obvious subject in this photo. But all around this dam, you can see that ridge line, this rock face, and even the cloud in the back there. That makes a frame. So framing is composition tip number 2. The composition tip number 3, I've spoken about this in other videos, and look, if you're remotely into photography, you probably already know this. But on the off chance you don't, just the rule of thirds. It's splitting the frame up into the noughts and crosses pattern into thirds. And this photo here, we're on the way back down the mountain, and we were pretty high up in the mountains, and the clouds in the valleys, they look pretty bloody spectacular. It was really bright clouds. And anyway, this crow come along and just sat on this rock 5 meters from us. And I said to Sarah, just stop walking, don't scare that crow, because that's a bloody good photo. And this is the photo that we took, and there's no editing on this photo, there's nothing on this photo. I actually used this photo in last week's video on how to watermark photos. But how bloody good is that? She said it looks like something from Game of Thrones, and I kind of agree. So rule of thirds is the last rule of composition that we're going to talk about here. Let's go on to the 2 bonus tips that I'm talking about that really help tell the story and give you a nice little surprise that you weren't really expecting. So the first bonus tip is that we're walking up onto the top of some of these rocks, and there's rocks everywhere, and you've probably seen that by now. And I said to Sarah, can you just climb up there and we'll see if we can. And with the phone, we went into the burst mode. And all you need to do with the burst mode is hit on the bottom of where the shutter button is and slide it to the left. That's if you've got an iPhone 11. And later on, when the iOS 14 comes out, I think everything from iPhone 8 Plus will have this feature as well. So when you upgrade your phone, you'll be able to do this. Is just by touching that button and sliding it to the left, and it will take a burst mode. If you don't take a burst series of photo, if you don't have iOS 14, if you're looking at this later after the release date of this video, or you don't want to upgrade it, or you've got an earlier phone, say an iPhone 6 for example, if you just push and hold that shutter button, it'll give you a burst anyway. But because in this photo here we've got really high contrast between the subject and the sky, we're going to try something cool here. I said to Sarah, just jump up on top of there, and I want you to jump up in the air. So as she did this, I hit a burst. And there you are, she's right in the middle of the sky, and it's going to be pretty hard to do with just a single shutter. So use burst mode, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is look everywhere for a photo. So walking along, everywhere you go up and down this mountain, on the side of the road, you saw these signs saying, significant roadside presence, I think it said, and there was a picture of a flower there. And occasionally you saw that, what a stupid sign. But anyway, I'm sure it means something, but to us it just meant there's a significant roadside presence. So anyway, we saw these little pink flowers everywhere. I'm not sure what they are. If you know what they are, comment below. And as we were walking through the bush, along these bush tracks, I saw some of these pink flowers, and I thought, what a cracker photo to get some macro shots. So I used Camera Plus 2, zoomed in with the macro functionality on this photo. I'll put a link up the top to another video that I've done with macro photography. But look at that, how bloody good is that? You wouldn't have taken that photo if you weren't looking for the smaller details. So your bonus tip number 2 is look for the small details. As we were going through on the way back down that mountain, we saw, Sarah was off, I was videoing, getting all this B-roll stuff for this video, and I come across this tree trunk and it had these small little mushrooms on it, and these mushrooms were tiny. They were like the size of your thumbnail maybe, they were really small. Using macro photography, I got this photo as well. So what an awesome weekend away. That was the trip at the Grampians, up in the mountains. I'll have another video later on that's all about shooting waterfalls and stuff. For all you guys in America, and I know there's a lot of you out there watching this stuff, stay tuned, I'll show you some more kangaroos soon. Alright guys, I'll see you next week.